Morning unfolded slowly across the high plains of Montana. The kind of morning where the world seemed to hold its breath before the day truly began. The sky stretched endlessly above McCoy Ranch, painted in soft shades of pink and gold as the sun climbed over distant hills. Harlan McCoy stood on his porch with a steaming mug of coffee, watching his 8-year-old daughter Annie chase after that damn orange kitten again. The little cat had a habit of escaping right at dawn, and Annie had made it her personal mission to catch it every single time. Harlan was a man built solid from years of ranch work, with broad shoulders and weathered hands that had seen their share of hard labor. His face carried lines that spoke of too many sleepless nights and a grief that never quite left his eyes. 3 years had passed since he'd buried his wife, Mary. 3 years of raising Annie alone, of learning to braid hair and make Sunday breakfast and answer questions about why Mama wasn't coming back. He'd done his best, but there were still moments when he felt the weight of her absence like a stone in his chest. Annie's laughter rang out across the yard, bright and clear, and Harlan felt himself smile despite the early hour. She was wearing her favorite blue dress, the one Mary had made before she died, now a little too short, but Annie refused to part with it. Her dark braids bounced as she ran, and for just a moment, Harlan could see Mary in the way she moved, the way she tilted her head when she was concentrating. Then Annie stopped running. She stood perfectly still near the fence line, about 50 yards from the house, her whole body gone rigid in a way that made Harlan's instincts flare. He set down his coffee and stepped off the porch, his boots crunching on the gravel. Something was wrong. He could feel it in the sudden quiet, the way even the morning birds seemed to have stopped singing. "Annie," he called out, starting to walk faster. "What is it, baby?" Annie didn't answer. She was staring down at something on the ground, something large and oddly shaped that definitely hadn't been there yesterday when they'd finished evening chores. As Harlan got closer, his stomach dropped. It was a burlap sack, the kind they use for grain, but this one was stained dark with something that looked too much like blood. And it was moving, just slightly, but definitely moving like something alive was trapped inside. "Annie, get back." Harlan broke into a run, his heart pounding. His mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Could be an injured animal, could be someone's sick idea of a prank, could be something worse. Out here on the plains, you learn quick that trouble came in all shapes and sizes. But Annie wasn't backing away. She was kneeling down, her small hands fumbling with the rope tied around the top of the sack. "Papa, something's in here. Something's hurt." Harlan reached her just as she got the rope loose. "Annie, wait, let me..." But it was too late. She pulled the sack open and gasped, stumbling backward. A hand emerged first. A woman's hand, pale and trembling, fingers stretched out desperately. Then an arm, covered in bruises that had turned ugly shades of purple and yellow. Annie grabbed the sack and pulled harder, and suddenly a woman tumbled out onto the dirt, gasping for air like someone who'd been drowning. Harlan dropped to his knees beside her, his trained eye immediately cataloging injuries. She'd been beaten badly. That much was clear. Her face was swollen on one side, her lips split and crusted with dry blood. Her clothes were torn and filthy, her dark blonde hair matted with dirt and what looked like more blood. She was young, maybe early 30s, and she was barely conscious, her eyes rolling back as she struggled to breathe. "Get the canteen from the porch," Harlan ordered, already reaching to check her pulse. It was there, but weak and thready. "Quick, Annie." But Annie wasn't moving. She was staring at the woman with an expression Harlan had never seen on his daughter's face before. Her eyes were huge, filling with tears, and her mouth had fallen open in shock. Her whole body started shaking. "Annie." Harlan's voice sharpened with concern. "Annie, the canteen. Now." And then Annie screamed. Not a scream of fear, but something else entirely, something that made Harlan's blood run cold. "Papa! Papa, it's Mama. They brought Mama back." Time seemed to stop. Harlan stared at his daughter, certain he'd misheard. "What?" "Annie, no, that's not. It's Mama." Annie was sobbing now, dropping to her knees beside the unconscious woman, her small hands reaching out to touch the stranger's face. "Papa, look, it's Mama. She came back. She came back to us." Harlan felt like he'd been punched in the gut. He looked down at the woman again, really looked at her, searching for any resemblance to his dead wife. But there was nothing. Mary had been tall with auburn hair and green eyes. This woman was shorter, her hair was darker, and when her eyes fluttered open for just a second, they were brown, not green. She looked nothing like Mary. Nothing at all. "Annie, sweetheart, this isn't your mother." Harlan kept his voice gentle but firm, even as his heart broke for his daughter. "Your mother died 3 years ago. You know that. This is someone else, someone who needs our help." "No." Annie was hysterical now, clinging to the woman's torn sleeve. "It's her. I know it's her. Papa, please, you have to see it. It's Mama." The woman's eyes opened wider, unfocused and confused. She looked at Annie, then at Harlan, her cracked lips moving but no sound coming out. Harlan could see the terror in her expression, the pain, and something else. Something lost and broken that went deeper than physical injuries. "It's okay," Harlan said quietly to the woman, making his voice as calm as possible. "You're safe now. I'm going to help you. Can you tell me your name?" The woman stared at him blankly. Her mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. She looked down at Annie, who was still crying and holding on to her like she'd never let go, and something flickered across her battered face. Confusion, recognition, fear. It was impossible to tell. Harlan made a decision. Questions could wait. Right now, this woman was dying on his property, and Annie was having some kind of breakdown. He needed to get them both inside, get the woman medical attention, and figure out what the hell was happening. He scooped the woman up as gently as he could. She was lighter than she should be, all bones and terror, and she whimpered as he lifted her. Annie scrambled to her feet and followed, still crying, still insisting that this stranger was her mother returned from the grave. Inside the house, Harlan laid the woman on the sofa near the fireplace. She was shivering despite the warm morning, her eyes rolling back again. He grabbed blankets while Annie hovered nearby, refusing to leave the woman's side. "I need you to get me water and clean rags," Harlan told Annie, trying to give her something useful to do. "Can you do that for me?" Annie nodded and ran to the kitchen. Harlan turned his attention back to the woman, carefully examining her injuries. Whoever had done this to her had meant to hurt her badly. Her ribs might be broken, and that gash on her temple needed stitching. He'd seen plenty of injuries in his time, but this level of brutality made his jaw clench with anger. The woman's eyes opened again, clearer this time, but still confused. She looked around the room like she didn't know where she was or how she'd gotten there. When her gaze landed on Harlan, she flinched. "You're safe," he repeated. "Nobody's going to hurt you here. What's your name?" She opened her mouth, struggled to speak. Finally, a whisper emerged, so faint he almost missed it. I don't know." Harlan's stomach sank. Amnesia, whether from the beating or something else. This woman genuinely didn't remember who she was. That explained why she couldn't tell him her name, but it made everything infinitely more complicated. Annie returned with water and rags, her face still wet with tears. She helped Harlan clean the woman's wounds, her small hands surprisingly steady. As they worked, the woman's eyes kept drifting to Annie with an expression that Harlan couldn't quite read. It wasn't recognition exactly, but it wasn't the blank stare of someone looking at a stranger either. After what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, Harlan had done what he could. The woman needed a doctor, but the nearest one was in town, a 2-hour ride away. He'd have to send for him. The woman had drifted into an uneasy sleep, her breathing still shallow but more regular. Harlan sat back, exhausted, and found Annie curled up beside the sofa, holding the woman's hand. His daughter's eyes were red from crying, but determined. "Papa," Annie whispered. "I know you don't believe me, but it's her. I know it is." Harlan opened his mouth to argue, to explain again that this was impossible, that her mother was buried on the hill overlooking the ranch. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the desperate hope in Annie's eyes. Maybe it was the way the woman had looked at his daughter. Or maybe it was just that he was too tired to fight. "We'll talk about it later," he said instead. "Right now, she needs rest." But as he stood to go send someone for the doctor, the woman stirred. Her eyes opened, glassy but aware, and she looked directly at Annie. Her cracked lips moved, and a single word emerged, soft but unmistakable. "Annie." Harlan froze. The woman's eyes fluttered closed again immediately, as if saying that one word had taken all her remaining strength. What had been said? Clear as day. She had spoken his daughter's name. "How do you know her name?" Harlan's voice came out harsher than he intended, edged with fear and confusion. The woman didn't respond. She was unconscious again, her face peaceful now despite the bruises. Annie looked up at her father with an expression of pure vindication. "See," Annie whispered, "Mama remembers me." Harlan stood there, his mind reeling, unable to process what had just happened. This woman looked nothing like Mary. She couldn't be Mary. Mary was dead. He'd buried her 3 years ago. He'd mourned her. He'd said goodbye. But she had known Annie's name, and there was something about the way she'd said it, something achingly familiar in that single whispered word, that made a cold fear creep up Harlan's spine. Outside, the morning sun climbed higher, burning away the last traces of dawn. But inside the McCoy house, in the quiet broken only by the woman's labored breathing and Annie's soft crying, an impossible question hung in the air like smoke. What if Annie was right? The woman who called herself Jane healed quickly, too quickly for someone half dead 3 days prior. Doc Preston attributed it to youth and constitution, but Harlan noticed something else, a desperate will to stay, to prove something unspoken. Marshall Red found nothing. The tracks led south toward the Badlands and vanished. No missing persons matched her description. No family came searching. Jane existed in a void, a woman without past or future. But Annie saw different. She hummed it, "Papa," Annie whispered on the fourth morning, clutching her rag doll. "Mama's lullaby. The one you can't remember all the words to." Harlan dismissed it. He'd probably hummed it himself while tending Jane's wounds. Annie was 8, suggestible, desperate for the mother-shaped hole in her life to be filled. Then Jane made breakfast. She moved through the kitchen with unconscious grace, reaching for the skillet without looking, adding cinnamon to the porridge without asking. Annie's eggs scrambled dry, the way the child preferred them. Coffee strong and bitter for Harlan. "How'd you know I don't like runny eggs?" Annie asked, eyes wide. Jane froze, spatula suspended. I don't know. I just did." Harlan's chest tightened. Mary used to make breakfast exactly this way. The coincidences multiplied like weeds after rain. Jane instinctively avoided the lavender soap Pearl Devo brought. Mary had been violently allergic, something Harlan never mentioned. She called Annie sweet girl and little bird, Mary's exact terms of endearment. She knew the loose floorboard in the hallway, stepped over it without thought. Annie started a list in her journal, adding each new proof with stubborn determination. Harlan found it one evening, knows where Sugarton lives. Sits in Mama's chair, folds clothes Mama's way, smells like Mama, sunshine and bread. "This has to stop," Harlan told his daughter that night. "Jane is a kind woman who needs our help, but she's not your mother. I've buried your mother, Annie. I stood at her grave. Did you see her face?" Annie's voice was small but cutting. Harlan's jaw worked. He hadn't. The body had burned beyond recognition in the wagon fire, wore Mary's blue dress, had her wedding ring. The marshal identified her. Harlan had been too destroyed to look closely, had let them bury her quickly in the summer heat. "I saw enough," he said finally, the lie ash on his tongue. The town buzzed with gossip. Pearl Devo held court at the general store, spinning theories about mysterious women and delusional children. Most folks offered sympathy tinged with suspicion. A few brought casseroles and knowing looks. Marshall Red brought darker news. Silas Crow's gang, he said, unrolling a wanted poster on Harlan's table. They've been operating in the territory 3 years. Kidnapping women, trafficking them. At least 8 missing, probably more. Harlan studied Crow's sketch. Dead eyes, knife-thin smile. You think Jane. Doc found a brand on her shoulder blade. Crow's mark. She was one of his. The room tilted. Mary had disappeared 3 years ago. Crow had been active 3 years. Jane appeared beaten, dumped like trash, exactly how escaped captives were found. But Jane looked nothing like Mary. Different hair color, different features, younger somehow. That night, Jane's screams woke the house. Harlan burst into the guest room to find her thrashing, clawing at invisible attackers. Now my baby, don't take her. Don't take my Annie. He grabbed her shoulders. Jane, wake up. Her eyes snapped open, wild and terrified. She seized his arms with shocking strength. Harlan, where's Annie? Is she safe? Where's my daughter? The words hung between them like gunsmoke. She'd used his name, Annie's name, called Annie her daughter. She shouldn't know any of it. He'd been careful, so careful, to avoid saying names in her presence. Who are you? Harlan breathed. Jane blinked, confusion flooding her face. I don't. She released him, hands shaking. I don't know. But when I said those names, they felt right. Like coming home. Harlan backed away, heart hammering against his ribs. Because for just one moment, in her terror and desperation, Jane's eyes had been exactly the same shade of gray as Mary's. Jane's memories returned in jagged pieces, sharp enough to draw blood. Wagon wheels screaming, flames licking wood, rough hands dragging her backward into darkness. A woman's body, wearing her blue dress, engulfed in fire. She woke gasping, fragments sliding into place like broken glass, forming a picture she didn't want to see. Chains, different rooms, different prisons. Men's faces blurring together. Needles, bitter liquid forced down her throat. She won't remember nothing. Make sure of it. What if it's not Mama in the grave? Annie asked at breakfast, her child's logic cutting through adult denial. What if someone else died in the wagon? Harlan slammed his cup down. Annie McCoy, that's enough. Your mother is dead. I'll mourn her. We buried her. This woman is. Then why does she know things? Annie's voice cracked. Why does she hum Mama's songs? Why does she call me little bird? Why does she know about your nightmares? Harlan froze. He'd never mentioned his nightmares to Jane. But last night, when he jolted awake, she'd appeared in his doorway without being summoned. The one where you can't reach us in time? She'd asked softly. Mary, she'd stopped, confused. I just knew. Alone in the barn that afternoon, Harlan let himself remember what he'd buried alongside that coffin. The body had been burned beyond recognition. It wore Mary's dress, the blue one with white buttons. It had her wedding ring. The marshal said it was her. The doctor agreed. In his grief-shattered state, Harlan never demanded to see the face. Couldn't bear to. They'd buried her within 2 days, the summer heat and decomposition forcing haste. He'd never actually seen his wife's face one last time. The realization hit him like a kick from a horse. Jane found him there, sitting in the hay, and somehow knew to sit quietly beside him. Tell me about the ranch, she said suddenly. 3 years ago. Why? Because I can see it. Her eyes went distant. The barn was red, not white. There was a chicken coop where the tool shed is now. The fence line ran 20 feet closer to the house. Annie had a rope swing on the oak tree. You took it down after... She blinked. After someone died. Harlan's throat closed. Every detail perfect. Details that changed after Mary's death. Jane pulled a scrap of paper from her pocket. A sketch of a toddler with wild curls and gap-toothed smile. This is Annie. 3 years ago. I drew it this morning. I don't know why, but I can see her so clearly at 5 years old. The likeness was flawless. Photos couldn't have been more accurate. Stop, Harlan whispered. Please stop. Your scar. Jane's voice strengthened, gaining certainty. The one in her left ribs. from when you fell through the barn loft at 16. Your brother had to carry you home. You never told anyone, but Mary, the words tore from him. Only Mary knew that. Jane's hand moved to his face, trembling. I take you, Harlan James McCoy, to be my husband, through drought and flood, through lean years and plenty, until the last star falls from the sky. Their wedding vows. Word for perfect word. Harlan grabbed her wrist. If you're married, prove it. Tell me something only she could know. Jane's face crumpled. I don't know. My head is broken. They broke it, piece by piece, until I didn't know my own name. But when I hold Annie, I feel whole. When I'm near you, I can almost remember being loved. When I'm in this house, I know where everything lives because I put it there. She was weeping now, years of anguish pouring out. You proposed during the spring storm, lightning everywhere, and you were terrified, but you said you'd rather die struck by lightning than live one more day without asking. Annie was born at dawn. You sang to me through the pain. Our first kiss tasted like apples because we've been picking them all day in. Did you see my face? Jane's voice broke. In the coffin? Did you know it was me? The silence stretched like a wound. Harlan's answer died on his lips as Annie's scream pierced the air. Riders on the horizon. 6 of them, moving with deadly purpose. Marshal Red galloped up, horse lathered. Crow knows she's here. He's coming for her. Jane saw the riders, and absolute terror consumed her face. Those men. I know those men. Silas Crow sat his horse like a king surveying conquered territory. Everything about him was calculated. The angle of his hat, the casual rest of his hand near his pistol, the cold amusement in his eyes. Harlan McCoy, he called across the yard. I believe you have something in mind. Get off my land. Crow smiled. Now, that's no way to greet a man come to collect his property. 3 years I invested in that woman. 3 years of care and keeping. She belongs to me. Marshal Red stepped forward, 0. Prove it. Crow's smile never wavered. All I see is a confused woman who wandered away from my employment. I'm here to bring her home. Jane stood frozen behind Harlan, every muscle locked in terror. Let me tell you a story, Crow continued, voice conversational. 3 years back, my men came across a wagon accident. Terrible thing, fire, woman dead. We gave her a Christian burial, being good citizens. But there was another woman, C, alive, injured. We took her for safekeeping. Liar, Harlan growled. Am I? Crow leaned forward. That woman in the grave. She was wearing a blue dress. Wasn't she? Had a wedding ring? Funny thing is, she wasn't Mary McCoy. Just some traveler your wife picked up. Kind-hearted soul that she was. Wrong place, wrong time. Died in Mary's clothes. The words hit like bullets. We took the real Mary McCoy. Kept her comfortable. Fed her. Cared for her. And now I've come to collect what's mine. You're insane, Marshal Red said, but his hand tightened on his rifle. Am I? Ask her. Ask Mary what she remembers. Harlan's world tilted. Behind him, Jane, Mary, made a sound like a dying animal. Crow's men fanned out. Now, we can do this peaceful, or we can do this bloody. Your choice, McCoy. Harlan, Marshal Red murmured. Get them to the cellar. The first shot shattered the standoff. Gunfire erupted. Harlan shoved Mary and Annie toward the house as bullets chewed wood. Marshal Red and his 2 deputies returned fire. Crow's men scattered, taking cover, beginning a methodical assault. In the root cellar, Annie clung to Mary in the darkness. Above them, gunfire punctured the air like deadly thunder. I'm scared, Annie whispered. Mary pulled her close, and something broke open in her chest. Not painful, but vast, like a dam releasing 3 years of pressure. Send me the song, Annie said, the one Mama used to sing. Mary's mouth opened, and the melody came unbidden. Hush now, little bird, fold your wings and rest. Mama's here to keep you safe, tucked against her chest. Morning comes with golden light, chasing dark away. But for now, just close your eyes, let night hold the day. The words unlocked everything. Mary remembered the wagon ride, offering a lift to a woman traveling alone. The woman trying on Mary's ring, admiring it, wearing Mary's spare dress because hers was torn. The attack, men appearing from nowhere. The crash, flames, being dragged away, seeing the other woman's body consumed by fire, wearing Mary's dress, wearing her ring. Waking in darkness. Chains. Crow's face. You're nobody now. Mary McCoy is dead. Buried. Forgotten. 3 years. Different locations. Drugs to erase her mind. Beatings when she fought. Psychological torture designed to shatter identity. Other women, all broken, all lost. Escape attempts. Failures. Punishments. Until the final escape. Stealing a horse during a supply raid. Being caught. The beating. Being left in a sack to die because she was used up, crazy, worthless. Her mind had protected her, buried the memories too terrible to carry. Until Annie's song reached through the darkness. Mama, Annie's voice pulled her back. Mary looked at her daughter, really looked, and remembered giving birth to her, nursing her, teaching her to walk, reading her stories, kissing scraped knees. My baby, Mary wept, crushing Annie against her. My sweet girl, Mama's here. Mama never stopped fighting to get back to you. I knew it. Annie sobbed. I knew it was you. The cellar door opened. Harlan descended, blood on his sleeve, face stricken. Mary met his eyes, her husband's eyes, and let him see the truth. Harlan, her voice was Mary's voice, finally, fully. I'm so sorry. I tried to come home. Recognition crashed through him like a flood. Above them, Crow's voice echoed. Mary, you can end this. Come out, and I'll spare your family. Mary stood, something steel-hard forming in her spine. No, Harlan grabbed her. Mary, no. He took 3 years. Mary's eyes blazed. He doesn't get one more second. Mary climbed from the cellar into chaos. The ranch yard was torn apart. Bullet holes stippling the walls, windows shattered, Crow's men using the barn and fence line as cover. Marshal Red crouched behind an overturned wagon, bleeding from a shoulder wound. 2 deputies held the house, but ammunition was running low. Crow stood in the open, confident in his invincibility, a human shield of 3 captive townspeople kneeling before him. Leverage he'd grabbed during the initial assault. There she is, Crow drawled. My Mary, come back to me, darling. This all ends when you do. Mary stepped forward, Harlan's rifle steady in her hands. I remember everything now. Crow's smile faltered. Do you? Every face, every name, every location you moved us to, every woman you broke, every crime you committed. Her voice carried across the yard, clear and certain. And I'm going to watch you hang for all of it. Bold words from a broken woman. You didn't break me. Mary advanced another step. You tried. God knows you tried. But every beating, every needle, every time you tried to erase me, I held on to one thing. Her. She gestured toward the cellar. My daughter. The thought of her kept me alive when you wanted me dead. Kept me sane when you wanted me mad. Kept me when you tried to make me nobody. Crow's composure cracked. You're still mine. 3 years, Mary. I own you. You own nothing. The standoff hung by a thread. Then everything exploded at once. Marshal Red's reinforcements thundered in from the east. 6 riders from the neighboring county, alerted by a deputy sent hours earlier. Crow's men panicked, divided their fire. In the confusion, one of the hostages broke free. Crow lunged, not for the hostages, but toward the house, toward Annie. Mary didn't think. She moved on pure instinct, the same instinct that kept her alive for 3 years. She fired. The bullet caught Crow in the shoulder, spinning him. His pistol flew from his hand. He collapsed, howling. Mary was on him before he hit the ground, rifle barrel against his temple. You don't touch my daughter. The fight drained from the yard like water. Crow's men, seeing their leader down and surrounded, threw down weapons. Marshal Red's reinforcements secured them with practiced efficiency. Crow writhed in the dirt, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping between fingers. You're dead. You're supposed to be dead. Disappointed? Mary's finger tightened on the trigger. Mary, Harlan's voice, gentle. Don't. He's not worth it. He took 3 years of my life. 3 years with my daughter. 3 years with you. And you'll take the rest of his when you testify. He'll hang. Let him hang legally. Mary's hand shook. The rifle wavered. Then she stepped back, letting Marshal Red take over. Silas Crow, Red announced, binding the man's wrists. You're under arrest for kidnapping, human trafficking, assault, attempted murder, and about a dozen other charges I'll remember once I get you locked up. Crow spat blood. She's lying. Crazy woman making up stories. The brand on her shoulder says different, Red replied. And I'm betting we'll find about a dozen more women with the same mark once we follow the trail she can give us. Mary watched them drag Crow away, and something inside her finally, truly broke. Not in destruction, but in release. The weight she'd carried for 3 years lifted. Not gone, never gone, but bearable now. She collapsed. Harlan caught her before she hit the ground. I've got you. I've got you. Doc Preston confirmed what everyone suspected. Evidence of long-term captivity, malnutrition, healed fractures, scarring from restraints and beatings, signs of repeated drugging. The psychological damage was harder to quantify, but equally evident. She's a miracle, Doc said quietly. Most don't survive what she's been through, and none come back this whole. She's not whole, Harlan said, watching Mary sleep in their bed where she belonged. But she's here. The town came, not just with sympathy now, but with shame. Pearl Devo arrived first, tears streaming. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I said, for what I thought. You didn't know, Mary said simply. We should have known Crow was operating. Should have done something. Marshal Red took that weight. I've been tracking him for months. If I'd moved faster. Stop. Mary's voice was firm. He was careful. He was smart. He made it impossible to find us. But I'm found now, and I can help you find the others. She did. Over the following days, Mary's testimony unraveled Crow's entire network. Locations, names, methods, victims. 14 women were freed from various camps and safe houses. Some remember their names. Some didn't. All bore the same brand, the same haunted eyes. 3 came to the ranch to meet the woman who'd brought down their captor. They didn't need words. Just knowing looks, careful touches, shared understanding. You saved us, one whispered. No, Mary replied. We saved each other. Every woman who survived, who fought, who held on. We saved each other. That night, Mary sat by Annie's bed, watching her daughter sleep peacefully for the first time in days. Harlan found her there. I should have looked, he said. Should have known. Should have searched. You thought I was dead. You protected our daughter. You gave me something to fight back to. Can you forgive me? Mary turned, and in her eyes was all the love that survived 3 years of hell. Can you forgive me for not being strong enough to escape sooner? They held each other, and finally, they both broke open, grief and guilt and love pouring out in equal measure. 6 weeks after Mary's return, she woke screaming. Harlan was there instantly, as he'd been every night, speaking softly until recognition flooded back in her eyes. You're home. You're safe. Annie's asleep down the hall. Mary's breathing slowed. She pressed her palm against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Real, solid, present. I'm sorry. Don't be. But she was. Sorry for the nightmares that shattered their sleep. Sorry for flinching when he moved too quickly. Sorry for the moments when her mind slipped sideways and she forgot where she was, who she was, lost in 3 years of darkness. The trauma lived in her body like a second skeleton, rigid and unyielding. Doc Preston warned them it would take time. The mind heals slower than the body. Some wounds never fully close, but they can learn to live with them. Annie became Mary's anchor in unexpected ways. The child possessed infinite patience, explaining things Mary should have known but didn't. Remember, Mama? This is how you taught me to braid. Watch. Over, under, pull tight. Small hands guiding scarred ones through familiar motions. Annie never showed frustration when Mary forgot things. Never complained when her mother woke her with screams. She simply crawled into bed, pressed close, and hummed the lullaby until Mary remembered she was home. "How'd you get so wise?" Mary asked one morning, watching Annie efficiently make breakfast, the way an 8-year-old shouldn't have to, but did because her mother was still learning to be whole. "Papa taught me. After we thought you died. He said grief makes you strong or it makes you small, and we chose strong." Mary pulled her daughter close, breathing in the soap and sunshine smell of her hair. "I chose strong too. Every day in that place, I chose you." Harlan learned to be a husband again, though it felt like courting a stranger who happened to wear his wife's soul. Mary was different, harder in some places, softer in others. She moved like a fighter now, aware of exits and approaches. She couldn't bear locked doors or small spaces. She needed light at night, needed to see the horizon. But her laugh, when it finally came, was exactly the same. He caught it one afternoon when Annie tried to teach a barn cat to dance. Mary's laughter burst out, genuine and surprised, and Harlan's heart cracked open all over again. That sound, he thought he'd never hear it again. "There you are," he whispered. Mary met his eyes. "I'm trying to find my way back. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." Physical intimacy returned in increments so small they were almost invisible. First, holding hands across the dinner table. Then Mary allowing him to brush her hair, something he'd done every night in their early marriage. Then sleeping in the same bed without the careful space between them. Then her head on his shoulder. Then his arm around her waist. Then, one night 2 months after her return, Mary turned to him in the darkness and kissed him. It was tentative, almost shy, as if they were 18 again. "Is this okay?" she whispered. "Are you okay?" "I'm getting there." It took it slow. Some nights Mary needed closeness. Some nights she needed distance. Harlan learned to read the signs, to follow her lead, to never assume or demand. "Thank you," she said one morning, dawn lights spilling across the bed they'd finally, truly shared again. "For what?" "For being patient, for not pushing, for letting me heal at my own pace. You do the same for me." "I would." She traced the scar on his ribs, the one only she knew about. "We're both scarred now. Different than before, but still us." The grave on the hillside became a place of reckoning. Mary stood before the marker that read, "Mary McCoy, beloved wife and mother," and felt the strangeness of reading her own epitaph. "She saved me, in a way," Mary said to Harlan and Annie, all three holding hands. "That woman in the wagon. She wore my dress because hers was torn. She tried on my ring because she thought it was pretty. She died, and Crow thought I was nobody. Just another nameless woman to break." They'd researched through Marshall Red's network. The woman had been traveling alone, no family, no destination. A drifter seeking work. Mary had offered her a ride out of simple kindness. "She deserves to be remembered," Mary said. They commissioned a new marker. "Here lies the unknown woman who wore Mary's dress. She died in flames, but is not forgotten. May she rest in the peace she was denied in life." Mary's death date was removed from the family Bible. In its place, Harlan wrote, "Lost, April 3rd, 1872. Found, September 17th, 1875. Never stopped being loved." The trial was cathartic and devastating in equal measure. Mary sat in the witness stand for 3 days, detailing every location, every crime, every woman she'd seen in captivity. Her testimony was clinical, detached, the only way she could get through it without breaking. Crow's lawyer tried to discredit her. "Mrs. McCoy, you admit to having no memory for months after your alleged captivity. How can we trust your testimony?" "Because I remember now. Every face, Every scream. Every woman you and your client destroyed. Alleged destruction. You have no proof. I have 14 women who bears brand. I have locations that your client's men confirmed under questioning. I have 3 years of hell burned into my memory. Is that proof enough? Crow was sentenced to hang. His surviving men received prison terms ranging from 10 to 30 years. The judge called it one of the most heinous criminal enterprises in territorial history. Mary felt nothing watching Crow led away in chains. She'd expected satisfaction or closure or something. Instead, just emptiness where hate used to live. Is it wrong that I don't feel anything? She asked Harlan that night. No, he doesn't deserve your feelings. Not even your hate. Then what do I do with this, Void? You fill it with life. With Annie. With the women you saved. With mornings on the porch and meals at our table, and every ordinary moment he tried to steal. The women Mary saved began visiting. Not all at once, but in ones and twos. Some just needed to see her, to know the woman who'd remembered them when the world forgot. Some needed to talk, to share their stories with someone who understood. Some just sat in silence, finding comfort in shared survival. Mary started a support group. Once a week, survivors gathered at the ranch. They talked or didn't. They cried or laughed. They learned they weren't alone. You're doing more good than you know, Marshall Red told her. Half these women wouldn't be healing without you. I'm barely healing myself. That's what makes it matter. You're not healed and helping. You're helping while healing. Shows them it's possible. Annie became something of a legend in town, the girl who knew. Other children whispered about her in awed tones. The girl whose love was strong enough to recognize her mother even when no one else could. Do you think other kids' imaginary friends are real too? Annie asked one evening, watching Mary cook dinner. Real cooking now, muscle memory returning. I think love is real, Mary replied. And love sees things logic misses. Annie's journal of proof sat on the mantel now, a treasured artifact. Sometimes Mary paged through it, marveling at her daughter's faith. Knows Mama's song. Makes eggs right. Calls me little bird. Smells like home. You saved me, Mary told Annie that night, tucking her in. You and your stubborn, beautiful heart. You saved yourself, Mama. You fought to come back. I fought to come back to you. There's a difference. For months after Mary's return, something shifted. She woke one morning without screaming. Made breakfast without pausing to remember where things lived. Worked in the garden without checking the horizon for threats. Laughed at Annie's joke without the laugh catching in her throat. At dinner, she realized she'd gone the entire day without thinking about Crow, about captivity, about the 3 lost years. Good day, Harlan asked, reading her expression. Yeah, Mary said, surprised. A good day. They came more frequently after that. Good days interspersed with hard ones, building slowly into good weeks. The nightmares didn't stop, but they came less often. The startle responses softened. The dissociative episodes grew rare. Mary learned she would never be exactly who she was before. That woman died in the wagon fire alongside the stranger in her dress. But she could be someone new, someone forged by survival, tempered by love, made whole by home. 6 months after her return, they sat on the porch at sunset, their family ritual now. Harlan carved a new fence post. Mary mended one of Annie's dresses. Annie drew pictures of horses and mountains and families together. Ordinary domesticity, precious because it had been nearly impossible. Mama, Annie said, setting down her charcoal. Tell the story again. Which story, sweet girl? How you came back? Mary set aside her mending, pulled Annie into her lap, 8 years old and still needing to be held, and began. Well, it starts with the bravest person I know. A little girl who looked at someone broken and saw her whole. Who believed when everyone said it was impossible. Who knew love when she saw it, even when it wore a stranger's face. Annie nestled closer. Love doesn't forget, sweet girl. Even when memory fails, even when the world says give up, even when the darkness tries to erase everything, love remembers. Love fights. Love finds a way home. Did you know? Annie whispered. Deep down, did you know it was me? Some part of me did. The part they couldn't reach with drugs or chains or cruelty. That part held onto you like a lifeline in a storm. Harlan's arm came around them both, his wife and daughter, complete again. The sun touched the horizon, painting the ranch in gold and amber. The land stretched endlessly in all directions, open, free. Theirs, not perfect. The scars remained. Mary's nightmares, the lost years, the trauma that lived in all their bones. But they were together. They were whole in the ways that mattered. You know what the best part is? Annie asked, "What's that?" "We get to have all the time you missed. All the birthdays and Christmases and ordinary Tuesdays. We get to make new memories." Mary's throat tightened. "We do, and I get to keep proving I was right. That I knew. That love is the best kind of knowing." Mary held her daughter as the sun sank lower, Harlan's presence solid beside her, the ranch unsettling into evening peace. She'd survived the impossible, endured the unendurable, fought her way back from a death that wasn't death, through hell that was entirely real, to this porch, this moment, this family. And they didn't just bring her back from the dead. They brought her back to life. "Come on," Harlan said finally, as full darkness gathered. "Let's go inside. Together. Together." The most beautiful word Mary knew. They walked into their home, scarred but standing, changed but whole, and closed the door on the darkness behind them.